So every woman you see, or every human being you see on earth, came from a black woman. Be it Asian, be it white, be it brown, we are all descendants of a black woman. And here's what I want to tell you about it. See, they try to erase her, they try to demonize her. But science, not emotion, not politics. Science says this thing I'm about to tell you right now, every human being on this planet Earth came from a black woman. God, I'm so happy. Every human being comes from a black woman. And they don't want you to know. Watch these videos and I'll be back. Watch. Oh my God, I'm so happy.
Yes, every human alive today is a descendant of a black African woman. That is the structural and biological truth. Mitochondrial Eve lived in East Africa around 150,000 to 200,000 years ago. She was a black African woman, as all humans at that time were. She is the matrilineal ancestor of every person alive today. Every living human's mother's line leads back to her. Whether you're from China, Sweden, Brazil, India, Iran, or the US, if you are alive today, your unbroken maternal line comes from a black woman from Africa. And since humans interbred across lineages, all other lines also trace back to Africa, even if not through the maternal line. Every person alive today is the child, through their mothers, of a black African woman. That is not metaphor, that is human ancestry.
Today I want to talk about the mother we all descend from and explain how we know. You actually have two genomes. You've got your nuclear genome, which is found in the nucleus, and then you have your mitochondrial DNA, which also has its own genome. And the two are distinct because mitochondria, that was actually a different organism that probably over 1 billion years ago started living symbiotically with an ancestral organism to us. Bizarre whole side video right there. That nuclear DNA gets all shuffled. It comes from mother and father. However, the mitochondrial DNA is only passed on mother to offspring. So if you go to your mom, she got that mitochondrial DNA from her mom, who got it from her mom, so on and so on. So if you take two populations, you could look to see about how long it's been since they last shared that common ancestor, that mother. And if we do that with populations all around the world and all of the known haplogroups we can look at, we can trace all of those lines back to that population that they all descend from. And that's mitochondrial Eve. So most studies end up suggesting somewhere around 145, 150,000 years ago is when that individual existed. I've seen a range from around 130,000 to 200,000 years. It has to do with the mutation rates of that mitochondrial DNA. It's hard to get that exact, but over the decades they have been able to narrow it down. That window's improved. It's safe to say sometime between 100 and 200,000 years ago, that mother existed. Knowing exactly where she was is much tougher. Populations move around a lot. Studies have attempted to identify where that population was. They've suggested they were isolated somewhere down here for quite a while. Others have pointed out they think trying to identify that actual homeland is making a strong claim from weakly informative data. I agree with that. I think the evidence continues to show that especially in Africa, populations were moving around so much throughout history. It's really hard to make that inference with a lot of confidence. But that's what mitochondrial Eve is, and I just think it's really cool that that exists because of the fact that that mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, is technically the genome of a different organism. The nuclear DNA is more like our human genome. The mtDNA is something else.
Hey TikTok, here's another cool biology fact for you. Because mitochondrial DNA can only be inherited from an ovum, that means that the mitochondrial DNA of every human on this planet can actually be traced back to one woman. We don't know who she is because her identity isn't fixed. 100 years ago, it was a different older woman. But we know that she lived somewhere between 100 and 250,000 years ago in sub-Saharan Africa, and we refer to her as Mitochondrial Eve. And it's not that other women, her contemporaries at the time, were not also reproductively fit. It was really just that those mitochondrial haplotypes inherited from those women, those lineages happened to die out, hers happened to not.
If you believe in the Bible, answer these questions. Now, only one answers. I don't need to know you lost or you dumb or none of that shit. Just answer my questions, please. And all these answers should match because y'all all believe the same book. So in the Bible, it says Adam and Eve was the first people on this earth, right? But then how did all other races evolve? If two Caucasian people or whatever race they was, how could they possibly make other races? And better yet, wouldn't we all be related? Another question, Noah's Ark.
My guy, honestly, it kind of make me sad how nobody in the comments can answer this man's questions. But I can. Alright, so first what you messed up at is when you brought up Adam and Eve and saying how two Caucasians can make other races. Let's start off by saying Adam and Eve was not white, they was not Caucasian. But two black people can make other races, which is called the Eve gene. You can just go read up on that yourself. Not to mention the oldest bone found in the world is from a black woman. Now let's get to the book of Enoch, which was taken out of the Bible. The book of Enoch was taken out of the Bible because it was rejected by the Jews, because it contained prophecies pertaining to Christ. Now let's get into how other races was really made while using the Bible. Scientists honestly proved that the Bible was real without even knowing it, honestly. When they found out about the Neanderthal DNA. I do not know if y'all know about the fallen angels. Everybody in this world was black to start off with. The fallen angels were sent down here to watch over the people. But instead, they started having sexual intercourse with the people. With the fallen angels having sexual intercourse with the people and disobeying God, they had kids and created giants. Which then giants started to have kids, which created Nephilims. And when them Nephilims began to have kids, they created Neanderthals. Which scientists proved that Neanderthals did exist. Which then the Neanderthals began to have kids. And not only that, where those people was living, there was a lot of sun. The Neanderthals couldn't take the heat. So they hibernated to the Caucasus Mountains. Which then the Neanderthals began to have kids, which began to create this. Caucasians were made, not born. It's a mutation. Also, and since you talked about the bloodline, God speaks about how after the third or fourth generation, you lose a certain bloodline. Kind of like if a black person have a kid with a white person. That kid is 50% black, 50% white. Then say that kid goes back to a black person. Now that kid is going to be 75% black, 25% white. Then after that kid goes back to a black person, that kid is still going to have an itsy bitsy piece of white DNA. But after that kid goes back to a black person, the white has disappeared and is soon to go back to its natural race. So sooner or later that whole bloodline will be wiped out. So think about where that bloodline will be at after thousands of years has passed. You had a lot of questions, so now I gotta make a part 2.
Every human on the planet shares a maternal common ancestor from Africa that lived 200,000 years ago. We've known this since 1987.
All gingers are black people. If they have red hair, they are black. You see a white man with red hair, that's a black man. You see a white woman.
Respectfully, this whole conversation is getting on my fucking nerves. Let me tell you why. I don't know anything about this name or the voodoo practice, so I'm not even going to dive into that. I'm not going to act like I know about that. What I do know is that in 1987, it was made public knowledge that every human alive traces back to an African woman who lived approximately 200,000 years ago. It was a groundbreaking discovery that was published in a journal called Nature by scientific researchers named Rebecca L. Kent, Mark Stoneking, and Alan C. Wilson. They took 147 individuals from all ethnic groups worldwide, and it was concluded that every single individual had a maternal ancestor in common. They called her Mitochondrial Eve. She lived approximately 200,000 years ago, and she was African. So saying that all gingers are black is not actually wrong, because we all are. Everybody comes from black women. Period. That's what that means. The mitochondrial DNA is what women pass down to their children. That is like a genetic breadcrumb. Literally, if the mom has it, the child has it. Men do not pass it to their children. Only women do. The only reason why men have mitochondrial DNA is because their mothers passed it to them. Mitochondrial DNA marker that is found in African women that ties everyone to the same maternal ancestor is called haplogroup L0 through L3. All non-African humans are part of haplogroup L3. This is traced back to Mitochondrial Eve, again, an African woman who lived approximately 200,000 years ago. We are all black or African, really. We're all African. Okay? That's what that means. Imagine! You hate yourselves. If you hate black people, you hate yourselves. If you're racist, you hate yourself. Oh, you didn't know? Surprise, surprise. Henrietta Lacks, another black woman. She unfortunately passed away in the 1950s as there were complications to the type of cancer she was battling. Ironically and coincidentally, her cells are the only known immortal human cells. Immortality. Her cells could not be used to save her life. However, they were stolen. Doctors stole her cells to help make vaccinations against polio, cancer, and a number of other incurable diseases at the time. Remember, this is the 1950s. They used her cells to create vaccines and treatments for incurable diseases that are still being used and changed and manipulated to this very day. As a matter of fact, the family is just now getting some type of compensation within the last decade after how many years? Since the 1950s of them using her cells. They're called HeLa cells. I mean, At this point, the fact that racism exists, but black people is where life came from. It is a well-known fact that life started in Africa. Now, it's been a well-known fact since 1987 that life started with the black woman. Is that why everybody expects black women to save them? Child. Listen, y'all get off my phone with this ginger shit. And it's not that I don't like ginger hair. It's not even about that. It just sounds really ignorant and ill-informed. I just debunked all the bullshit that's circulating this app virally right now. In addition to that, some of y'all's racism is showing because y'all are trying to compare your experience as a white presenting ginger to that of the black person who you have DNA ancestry linked to. Make it make sense. All right, that's all I got. Bye.
I know what a healthy child is supposed to look like. I'm looking at kids as I walk through the airports today, as I walk down the street, and I see these kids that are just overburdened with mitochondrial challenges, with inflammation. You can tell from their faces, from their body movements, and from their lack of social connection. And I know that that's not how our children are supposed to look.
So I'm an actual medical doctor, unlike our Health and Human Services Secretary, and I'm here to tell you that mitochondrial challenges, it's not a real disease. Now, there are rare mitochondrial disorders that do exist, but a layperson cannot make those diagnoses just by observing the way people behave and look out in airports. You need actual medical doctors and medical geneticists to run a series of tests, including genetic testing, to make those diagnoses. And I'm not really sure what he means by inflammation. Is he seeing like visibly inflamed children just wandering through airports? I don't know, but this is the kind of pseudoscience and quackery we've come to expect from our Health and Human Services Secretary because he is a pseudoscientific anti-vax quack. And in case you missed it, that guy, the mitochondrial challenges guy, just fired the director of the CDC shortly after she was confirmed because they clashed over his anti-vaccine rhetoric. And in the wake of that firing, several top officials at the CDC have resigned in protest.
Let's talk about the Mitochondrial Eve. I did a video in regards to Egypt and Egypt's lawyer that is suing Netflix because Cleopatra is being portrayed in this documentary as a black woman. And I have been inundated, not by white people, by melanated dominant people, in love with the slave master. So in love with the slave master that they are defending to no end a dead Greek woman. She probably did have milky white skin. That is no concern of mine at all. Neither, if you listened to the video, was that my argument. My argument was the audacity of them that say they are Egyptians, that are sons and daughters of invaders and mutts, would have the audacity to sit on the continent of Africa, Egypt, after you done robbed and grave robbed and took and stole, and then get mad because Cleopatra is being played by a black woman. And I had black people, melanated, dominant house ninjas, defending Cleopatra to no end. She's a dead woman and defending her to no end. Okay, so let's talk about science, because I don't have time for stupidity. Let's talk about the Mitochondrial Eve. So the Mitochondrial Eve was a study that was done scientifically to find out if we were all linked together in humanity. What did they find? They found that the mitochondrial DNA, the DNA of the mother, passed on to her daughter, doesn't die. Therefore, you could find a link between all humanity. What did they find? They found the link through all humanity from one black woman. She is called the mother of all human beings. She is the Mitochondrial Eve. And honey, she come from East Africa. So tell me that Cleopatra doesn't come from a black woman. Then we can have another conversation. Tell me that these years of science is wrong, and we can have another conversation. But a black woman can play any woman she want to play. Why? Because she is the mother of them all. Please stay out of my inbox with stupidity. And you house ninjas, go find somebody else to follow, because I'm not for y'all. I'm from the free blacks. You still love master. Bye.
What's the difference between Mitochondrial Eve and the Eve gene? My name is Sasha, I'm a genetic counsellor, and I'm studying a PhD at Cambridge.
First of all, I'm in Portugal on my holidays. I actually did bring my laptop and I have been doing some writing, but it has been quite hard to record and also enjoy the sun. So before I talk about genetic conditions again, I wanted to talk about populations and groups of populations again, and in particular the concept of mitochondrial Eve and the Eve gene, because I think this is something that I have heard kind of my friends and community talk about a lot, and it might be nice to talk about the differences between those two things. So when we talk about mitochondrial Eve, we're talking about a scientific theory, but when we talk about the Eve gene, things tend to get a little bit messy. So first of all, what is the mitochondria? So we've spoken about genetics, we've spoken about our cells, and we know that most of our genetic information lives in the very center of the cells, what we call the nucleus. But then we have another bit of the cell, which is sometimes described as the powerhouse of the cell, and that's called the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is the thing that provides lots of the energy for the functions of a cell. And mitochondria has its own DNA. And interestingly, when we create a child, mitochondria is only found in the egg that comes from the mum. So mitochondrial DNA is something that you inherit exclusively from your maternal side. So mitochondrial Eve, therefore, is not the first woman. She's the most recent woman that all living people have inherited their mitochondrial DNA from. Yes, she lived in Africa about 150,000, 200,000 years ago, and yes, she was black. Now that raises a whole question about what it means to be black, but I think when we talk about this a little bit further, you'll see why it gets a little bit messy. So mitochondrial DNA mutates or changes quite often, and that characteristic of mitochondrial DNA is what allows scientists to work out the different lineages. So mitochondrial Eve, therefore, represents that point where all the lineages converge. So what the concept of mitochondrial Eve tells us is that we're all related. We have a shared ancestry, and our genetics is what binds us all together. Now let's move on to the Eve gene. I often hear this phrase that all black women have the Eve gene, and this proves that all races come from the black woman. Now that sounds very empowering, but it's not science. Yes, everybody has descended from a black woman, but do all black women possess an Eve gene is a slightly different claim. But this type of thinking reinforces the idea that there are these very defined races set in genetics that white supremacy likes to tout and is the basis of the problems that we have now with thinking about systemic racism. When we look at our genetics, because of the ways that we have moved across the globe, backwards and forwards, our genetics are really quite mixed and they're really a bit of a blurring rather than straight lines between different populations. So that means if you're using genetics only, it's a pretty bad formula for saying that there are defined races. So the simplest way for me to think about it is there are women who look like me. They have inherited their mitochondrial DNA from somebody who doesn't look like me. So would that black woman share the same Eve gene as I share? Does that mean that I don't believe that I'm a black woman? Does that mean that I don't celebrate about being black? Does that mean that I don't celebrate our shared culture, our ancestry? Absolutely not. It means that when I think about the identity of being black, it's not just about my genetics. I'm thinking about my social being, my politics, my culture, my spirituality. There are many examples of non-Western civilizations that use different ways to think about inheritance or how we are connected or how we are a people. So it's our histories, our culture, our struggle, our spirit that makes us who we are. So our genetics can tell us how we are connected, but it can't tell us who we are. Only we can decide that.
Here's something wild. Every sperm has about 50 to 70 mitochondria, but guess what? None of these make it into the embryo. As soon as the sperm reaches the egg pretty much destroys all of the sperm's mitochondria. The zygote only gets mitochondria from the mom. That's why mitochondrial DNA is 100% maternally inherited. It's a clean maternal line going back thousands of generations. You of course still get DNA from your dad's side, but when it comes to energy powerhouses, your mom is the real MVP.
Hey, thank you so much for your comment. I know what the Eve gene is, so I'm well aware that you are 100% correct. However, the assignment was for black women to research the Eve gene and for them to drop down in the comments so that we could have a conversation about our genetic diversity that isn't shared by all women. The conversation I would have with all women about mitochondrial DNA is that we all share it. And it would start and stop there for me. However, I am much more interested in having a conversation with other black women who share very unique hair types, multiple hair types such as mine. And I think I wrote nappy hair appreciation post in the thumbnail because, again, I have a target audience. But nonetheless, thank you for your comment.
Yes, she's my baby. Yes, I carried her for 38 weeks. Yes, she is a real baby. She's not a fake baby. She's only 6 months old, and I've heard that Cat Williams joke more times than you can count, and it's not funny. For those of you that still have more questions, they can usually be answered by genetics are crazy. They do all kinds of things.
Same mom, different daddies, have siblings? No, the fuck it's not, first of all.
And she's right. It's actually not, especially if you are a daughter and you have sisters. So when you create a baby, you pass down something called mitochondrial DNA. The woman passes this down to all of her children, but only the girls can pass it down to the next lineage. You can track a whole lineage through the mother alone. Mitochondria are inherited from the mother, unlike nuclear DNA, which is inherited from both parents. Mitochondrial DNA is contained within the mitochondria of the egg cell and is passed down from the mother to all of her offspring. Passed to both sons and daughters, both male and female offspring receive mitochondrial DNA from their mother. Only daughters transmit it further. While sons inherit mitochondrial DNA, they do not pass it on to their own children. Only females can transmit their mother's DNA to the next generation. In summary, mitochondrial DNA serves as a valuable marker for tracing direct maternal lineage across generations, passed down from mother to all of her children, but only daughters transmit it further. I've always thought of like brothers and sisters that were same dad, different mom as being halves. And that's because they don't share the same mitochondrial DNA. They don't come from the same womb. But children who are born out of the same womb share the same lineage all the way through. They're marked with tracers. I don't know, I'm just talking though. Food for thought.
Hold up, stop right now and watch this video. Did y'all know that black women are the only organisms on Earth that produces the mitochondrial DNA? That has all of the variations possible for every single kind of different human being on this earth. Such as the Africans, the albinos, the Europeans, the Hispanics, the Asians, the Middle Easterns, all Latinos, you name it. When the DNA of a black woman mutates, all other kinds of different human beings come about. I'll actually like for y'all to go research this for yourselves because y'all can actually learn a lot. I'll be putting links down below. And this is called the Eve gene, just in case if y'all don't know, and it is only found in black women. So if any racists try to bring you down, including the black boys, because I see them being a lot of colorists, let them know they wouldn't be who they are today if it wasn't for you, because you are the manifestation of God. Praise y'all.
Come on, you won't see this in textbooks. You won't hear it in most schools because the world knows that. If people knew that the black woman is the literal mother of all humanity, they would do something bad, right? Yeah, of course. They would have to admit her power, her beauty, her worth, and they've spent centuries doing the opposite. Imagine how women are being treated, not knowing that, black women especially, not knowing that from within us, we bettered every human being you see in the world. See, black women are still the most disrespected, unprotected, and overlooked. Yet, she is the origin, the source, the blueprint. This isn't just about history, it's about dignity, knowing where we came from. Change how we walk, how we talk, and how we demand respect. Come on, respect me. I am mother. I am a mother. See, every black woman should start carrying herself well. When you're walking around, tell them you're a mother. You better, you see, out of you, this is what the Bible says, out of you flows rivers of living water. Is you they're talking to black woman? Yeah, they can learn about history. They can whitewash the images, right? But science speaks louder than the lies. The mother of humanity was a black woman, and that means black women are not just magic. They are foundational. I'm so excited seeing this. I want you to drop a fist or just say something in the comment section, right? If you honor the black woman today and share this because the world needs to know who she really is. In Nigeria, say you want to try. If you want to try, honestly, I feel so special about it. I feel huge. I feel special about this, and I want to know how you feel in the comments, right? Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share, right, to your friends. It's Global Just with Beejay. I blessing love you, not just for any reason, but because you're a black woman, right? And because you came from a black woman. Salute. See you on the next one.